What is everybody? Welcome back to Truth and Transparency. My name is Lana. I'll be your host as always. This is Karen Reed's civil lawsuit part 2. This is talking about the counts 1 through 7. I want to remind everybody that Alan Jackson gave this statement after they dropped the lawsuit. And Alan Jackson talked to Ted Daniels, and he said the following. Ted Daniels says that I've reached out to the lawyers for the McCabe's, Alberts, O'Keefe's, and Brian Higgins about Karen Reed's new lawsuit and their proposed claim against her. Ted Daniels says, I'll let you know if I hear back. Then he says, this just released statement is from Alan Jackson and Karen Reed's civil team. In quotes. Today's filing speaks for itself. Obviously, he asked them on the day that it was filed. It is a meticulously documented civil action grounded in evidence, law, and the Constitution. And here at Truth and Transparency, we are all about all of those things, like very much so. For more than 3 years, Karen Reed was dragged through a baseless criminal prosecution engineered by individuals who abused their authority, manipulated the investigative process, and trampled her rights. Our complaint lays out in stark detail the malicious prosecution, the conspiracy, the civil rights violations, and the intentional misconduct that these defendants visited upon an innocent woman. The next part is really, really important here, highlighted. If these defendants want to answer for that under oath, we welcome it. What that means is if these defendants, that's what I was saying yesterday, if I was those defendants' lawyers, there is no way you were answering this complaint unless you want to go to prison. I believe they're going to go to prison quicker if they answer it. I believe they're going to prison regardless, but it's just going to a matter of how long something would take, in my opinion. What I mean by that is if you answer this lawsuit, you're opening yourself up for discovery, your phones, your geolocation. I mean, things that never came out in the first trial because Karen Reed was not, those other people weren't on trial for murder. Karen Reed was. So some of that stuff would not be able to be brought up because it's not relevant to this case, to her prosecution. But that's why they were trying to get this third party culpability stuff in, because then it is relevant. But if you're not able to get those type of claims in, and then your strategy, your trial strategy, everything changes. At the end of the day, what I said yesterday, you go watch any of these lawyers talking about it, especially some like people that I respect. And Karen Reed and Turtle Boy, their phones were all seized. Karen Reed, her life, everything was, they went through with a fine comb, okay? There's no secrets. There's no skeletons in Karen Reed's closet. There truly is not. People are saying, I can't wait for Karen Reed to be deposed. Okay. No. You should be saying, I can't wait for these defendants to be deposed. I can't wait to see their stuff because their stuff has never come out. With the exception to Jennifer McCabe's cell phone and potentially Kerry Roberts. And I personally believe that Jennifer McCabe had no idea what was on that device because, as I have stated over and over and over, based off of the evidence that I had, that Matt McCabe is the one that made those Google searches, not Jen. And I base that on Jen McCabe's watch. Her phone and her watch are separated. She's going up flights of stairs. Her watch is registering it. Her phone is not. Stuff like that is going to come into play, I think, in this case, if it was to ever go to trial. Now, moving on, he says, what we will not do is legitimize a threat to file some imaginary defamation case. That threat is nothing more than a desperate attempt by these defendants to distract the public from the very real legal jeopardy they now face. When people start waving around defamation claims to mask their own legal troubles, it tells you everything you need to know, and that they do not want sunlight, they want silence. Karen Reed spent years fighting for her own freedom against a corrupted investigation. Now she is fighting for accountability. Right there, she is fighting for accountability. What's going to happen because of everything that they did? And it is not just financial, man. I'm telling you that right now. In fact, I think there's going to be a big plot twist coming. I told Bella last night, I said, you know what? I have some weird feeling that after I found out who was going to be running for district attorney for Norfolk County, he is coming with vengeance. Okay. He wants to change that town. He wants to change the county. He wants to clean it up. Okay. And I believe that if he wins and he is the district attorney, he's the one that went on the pursuit with the federal probe into the investigation into the murder of John O'Keefe, all this stuff. He just did a announcement of it. He left being a federal prosecutor to basically say, I want to come to Norfolk County, run for DA, win, and then basically clean house, right? Well, something that I thought about is, oh my God, what would be the odds of then hiring Alan Jackson as your special prosecutor to prosecute these motherfuckers? Wouldn't that just be something? You know how they brought in Hank Brennan he's a defense attorney to be the special prosecutor in the Karen Reed second retrial. Well, who knows this case better than someone like Alan Jackson, who was a prosecutor and a very damn fine one? Okay. Wouldn't that just be something to watch Alan Jackson be sworn in and prosecute as a special prosecutor against all of them? How amazing would that be? Now, you heard it here first. I'm just saying he knows the case. He knows everything. Moving on. Okay. So now she is fighting for accountability. And unlike the criminal case, this time the defendants don't get to hide behind badges, back channel favors, or manufactured narratives. They will have to answer in a court of law for every lie, every omission, every manipulated report, and every constitutional violation they committed. Karen Reed is not backing down. Our team is not backing down. You know what that means? We are not settling. That's what it means to me. We're not settling. Accountability is coming. And these defendants can threaten all the phantom lawsuits they want, but the truth doesn't flinch. Fucking love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. Again, I personally believe that it's just a matter of when, not if. It's kind of like the Adelson case for me with this. These people are going to stand trial for the murder of John O'Keefe. Not a doubt in my mind now. Once that dude made an announcement that he's running, and if he gets to be the district attorney, 1,000% he's prosecuting. No doubt about it. Like none. Absolutely not. Like, and so this is so interesting how this will all play out. Because like I said yesterday, there's no way in hell you're going to answer this. And that's why Alan Jackson says the words, if these defendants want to answer, because he knows that if he was their lawyer, there's no way you're answering this. And what I mean by answering a complaint, somebody sues you, somebody files a complaint against you. You have, 28 days, depending on the state, 28 days, 30 days to respond, okay, to answer the claim. And that's what it says, answer the claim, so it's your answer. But you also have the ability to countersue, okay? If they think that they are going to, the worst thing you could ever do here, and I learned it in the Moore case, the worst thing that these defendants could do is counterclaim, countersue, and say that they've been defamed. Once you go on the record saying that somebody's defamed you, oh my God, you open yourself up to everything, because now you have to prove it's on you. Like you're opening yourself up for everything. So one, I don't think they'll be answering it at all, but there's no way in hell do I think that they're going to counterclaim. But if they're that dumb, okay, and that's where Jill Bolton made the biggest mistake of her entire career with the Dan Moore case. She lifted a stay that should have never been lifted in a civil case. And then she not only answered Jennifer Drake's ridiculous bullshit, she countersued Jennifer Drake in that case. So when you do that, you open yourself and you subject yourself to depositions, all this discovery. So yeah. And I'm looking into, because I'm not a lawyer. I just do research and try to figure it out on my own. My question is Sherry asked me a really good question last night. It got me thinking, and so I was digging. Sherry D, if you're in here, love you, girl. My question is this. If that dude becomes the prosecutor, or not, the district attorney of Norfolk County, okay, he ran a federal investigation into basically the investigation into the murder of John O'Keefe and everything like that. And they uncovered things and went and got things that obviously the district attorney office and those detectives never went and got. Like, they didn't go and get search warrants for other people's stuff in this case. They didn't secure people's cell phones. They potentially could have had different geofences set up. For example, to see when so-and-so came home. You could have set up a geofence around what's his name's Higgins's house. You could have had multiple geofence locations set up at the time to see, hey, this is the time that he would have gotten back, because his phone. If other people would have come over, you could have potentially done it around McCabe's house. I'm just trying to think. Just all the different various methods to investigate a case. You could have went out and got to see if the Alberts have a Ring camera or any type of surveillance camera. You could just do a bunch of different things. Okay, none of that was done. Now the feds, they did a bunch of shit. So because they got their hands on things that obviously, since the district attorney didn't do, meaning his investigators, they didn't do, the Massachusetts State Police didn't do. My question is if he becomes, let's say, the DA, and he has all this personal knowledge, he knows what was found in the federal investigation. And the only reason, let's hypothetically say, that the feds couldn't do anything is because there has to be a federal crime. Okay? There has to be a federal crime. They don't have jurisdiction to say, hey, we're going to charge these people with murder. That's not what they do. They have to find federally that there was a crime committed, and they could go that route. So my question is if anybody of you guys, the lawyers out there, take this clip, send it to them, and ask, if this dude becomes district attorney, the information that he knows or obtained federally, if he knows how to go and get that, and if they preserve stuff the right way when he did it federally, can he come now as a district attorney using his investigators, write up search warrants, and obtain everything that he knows is out there legally so that he could build a case to then prosecute these? Obviously, I think that these people are all guilty. These people that were involved in the murder, or I should say, I don't think anybody was planning on committing murder that night. It became what it was because they didn't render aid. So that's my little thought for the morning. It was actually last night, and I was like, I wonder, this guy didn't just give up being a prosecutor, a federal prosecutor, to say he wants to become the Norfolk District Attorney's Office DA, and then to get there and not do anything. He's going to come in there and do something. So my logical brain and common sense tells me that he absolutely has a way to do shit, because otherwise, why would you be going there? Why would you be going there? And he's also talked about the Sandra Birchmore case. Okay. So that's just all I wanted to say about that. Now, let's get into these counts. And I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm not here to read this to you. I'm here to say if I think that they're, like, my thought behind the counts, and then what I remember from the case in terms of where you're going to be able to prove that, or that's going to be difficult. So let's go like this. And count one here is it's 1 through 7. So the first one is malicious prosecution under the Fourth Amendment, and that's against Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully. And the reason it's just against them is because the other citizens, they have no say in somebody being prosecuted. Okay, investigators turn over recommendations for prosecution, and then prosecutors prosecute based off of those recommendations, based off of the evidence that they uncover. So count one here, and it says, as you can see, there's a little footer. So Alan Jackson's team here does a really good job of reminding everybody that, hey, after making presentment pursuant to GL 258, Miss Reed will add counts against A, Massachusetts State Police for negligent training, supervision, and retention of MSP troopers, including Proctor, Buchnick, Tully, and B, the town of Canton for neglect, oversight of the investigation into Mr. O'Keefe's death and of its own officers and facilities. Keyword, there's facilities as far as I'm concerned. Everything was going down at the Canton Police Department. Everything was going down in the Sallyport, right? I'm sorry, but just because we recused ourselves doesn't mean we are become idiots, that we become up. I don't have to report anything. I don't have to, if I see something, say something. That's what neglect means. And you're negligent. I can't wait for that. That's going to really make those town meetings really, really wild. They've already been wild. So here the malicious prosecution of the Fourth Amendment is that Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully violated Miss Reed's Fourth Amendment rights by engaging in malicious prosecution of Miss Reed by causing her to be seized pursuant to legal process unsupported by probable cause. Keyword there, probable cause. They didn't have probable cause for any of this, right? They never had probable cause. The criminal proceedings against Miss Reed terminated in her favor when she was acquitted of murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene of the accident. So next is Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully caused Miss Reed to be seized without probable cause as described above, including but not limited by. And this is all the ways that they're saying that this happened. A is they were leading, handling, and participating in the O'Keefe investigation, even though Proctor was conflicted due to personal relationships with various witnesses, suspects, and potential suspects, which conflict led to Miss Reed's unlawful treatment. So can they prove this? I think his testimony and his text messages show that. And all they have to do is tip the scale, 51%. It's not beyond a reasonable doubt. So I think that totally tips it. So I think yes. B, handling the investigation, even though Proctor had an extreme and personal negative bias towards Karen Reed, which biases led to Miss Reed's unlawful treatment. Obviously, yes. His own words, and then his reports. C, violating MSP's rules, practices, and procedures in all aspects of the investigation. 1,000,000% yes. Okay. I don't even think they made a big enough deal about that in trial 2. But I think that they had a hard time making it a big deal because of the way that Hank Brennan went about prosecuting the case and how he presented the evidence at trial. It was the most unorthodox thing ever, but it had to be unorthodox because I think there was also protection going on. He had to prosecute the case the way that he did to further protect these people. It's so obvious. D, planting, fabricating, and manipulating evidence, falsifying documents, preparing false affidavits, and committing perjury. Remember if you guys watched that first trial with me and I was like, man, why aren't we going at Brian Tully? We should be going at Brian Tully. Brian Tully, in my opinion, is, I think he's worse than Proctor. I think he's worse than Buchanan. I think Tully just didn't do favors. Okay. He is just a sick motherfucker. He needs to go. Like, he's a criminal. A criminal. He's awful. Awful human. But when I think about planting, fabricating and manipulating evidence, falsifying documents, preparing false affidavits, and committing perjury, I really hone in on the fact that I think Tully and Proctor have a very special relationship. They look alike, right? People can confuse. If you like, you can confuse one for the other. I'm telling you, you totally could. Whereas you couldn't confuse Buchanan with Proctor or Tully. You know, they don't look alike at all. So I go back to the CERT team. I go back to collecting the first pieces of taillight at the scene and you know, digging through everything. I go back to that night after the SUV was brought back. And Tully admits that he was there, you know, doing that. Tully also held off on sending people there. It was Tully's decision not to, you know, release and go, hey, go, like, hold off. It was his decision to hold off and not send the CERT team. I think that's huge. It's like, whose decision was that? Who made that decision? And that wasn't Michael Proctor. That was Tully. Tully was then there. And then once Tully got there and saw that, like, say, you saw that the scene wasn't roped off or anything like that, like, what did you do to then secure it? Even at that point, nothing. Because Proctor's over here saying, I never went there. And we all thought that was so hard to believe or whatever, but that's part of the whole story because it goes to the whole planting of the evidence. So I think Brian Tully's going to get a nice, swift Key West boomerang. I think he's way more culpable than people ever imagined, in my opinion. Failure to secure evidence and the crime scene. Oh, look at that, hand in hand. I think they're thinking the same thing right here. Boom. Exactly. It's like, even if Canton Police Department did what they did, okay, it was turned over to you guys, meaning Massachusetts State Police, almost immediately. And when you would have arrived there, Tully, you would have seen, like, hey, we have to rope this off. Hey, we have to have scene security. We have to have somebody out there. Can you imagine? Let's just give you a really good example, which would be, can you imagine the King Road house, 1122 King Road, that it was never roped off? Can you imagine that there was nobody ever out there guarding it? To think that it was just anybody could go out there and do whatever they wanted to that area. It's just, it's mind blowing. So, but yeah, failing to secure evidence in crime scene, obtain evidence, timely and appropriately interview suspects. Yep. And investigate the Alberts, McCabe's. And I love how they say the word just investigate. Okay. Investigate. Vet is in there. VET. Investigate. You tell me something, I have to investigate that. I just don't say, oh, that's okay. Sounds great. Thank you so much. Okay. No. None of that happened. And then obviously allowing them to destroy potentially exculpatory evidence. I think they also tipped them off to be able to destroy the evidence. Okay. I think there was a lot of tipping off going on. I want to know if there's evidence of that you're providing notice that, hey, this is coming. You need to get rid of this. Right? I talked about it yesterday. Now we know why Nuttall had to lie about the puffy jacket. It was because he was doing them a solid about this right here. That we didn't have any reason to go into the house. We were told there was a puffy jacket. You know what I mean? Like, that's why not all lied. He's a piece of shit too. I hope I. Next, failing to consider and present exculpatory evidence to prosecutors and the grand jury investigating Mr. O'Keefe's death. I think that's going to be so huge. Um, they had all of this stuff. They buried it. They buried it. Them going back and indicting her for murder, second-degree murder, from February to whatever they did from February to June of 2022, I think that those phones are explosive to show that this part here, for failing to consider. They considered it and then they went and buried it. They buried that exculpatory evidence. They buried the dog bite injuries. I'm curious if they ever even mentioned the fact that there was a dog there. I would love to know what pictures they showed the jury. Did they just focus on his head? Because I've never seen that. That's supposed to be sealed. Number 113, following her indictment by a grand jury, Miss Reed was rearrested without probable cause, forced to pay $100,000, and required to comply with numerous pretrial release provisions. These post-arraignment provisions of her liberty constitute seizure under the Fourth Amendment. Damn. Now this gets into all the false testimony. So, among other things, Proctor falsely testified that when he first saw the taillight on Miss Reed's car at Miss Reed's parents' house in Dighton, it had large pieces missing and the shattered taillight displayed at the first trial. As photographed on February 1st, it was basically the same condition as January 29th. I think Nicholas Barrows is going to be believed, right? And I think that it's going to come up about the practices. Why aren't you taking pictures, right? You know that you would do that, especially if they're going to show a practice of him doing that in other cases. You're always taking pictures at these crime scenes. So if they were able to get proctors all these past from 2000 whatever year, I guarantee you on there is him at different crime scenes and him taking pictures of things. I would be showing that, okay? And then if they're able to show that he in fact did take a picture of Karen Reed's, taillight or whatever, and then deleted it, I think that would come up in a cell right too. But I don't know. I mean, I heard that they're going back all the way in the cloud to I think it was 2013. I find it hard to believe. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of. I couldn't imagine going through that, being the person that's tasked with, here you go. That's when you need to put it out to the internet and let all the sleuths go at it and dig up and find what they can find. Let's see. He and Buchanan never touched any part of Miss Reed's vehicle when it was stored in the CPD Sallyport. He testified that he retrieved taillight pieces on subsequent searches at the Alberts home when he knew he had deposited or arranged for someone to deposit the taillight pieces at the property. I mean, this is criminal. This is a civil case, but everything that they are talking about is criminal activity. And they are going down. You want to talk about, remember Turtle Boy was saying, he said these people are going away for murder, accessory after the fact, obstruction of justice. I mean, you criminal conspiracy, you name it. Okay. And that's why you can't answer this. So what would have to happen here when they're answering this, if they choose to answer this stuff, is if it's about you, you're saying either deny or I have no opinion because I don't have sufficient evidence to base an opinion if this is true or not. Wow. I'm not answering this. Like, if this was me and I was in their situation, there's no way I'm answering these questions. There's absolutely no way. If these people answer, I will be absolutely shocked. Literally shocked. Like, speechless. I mean, but this par for the case, because I've been speechless with this case the whole time, that this is happening in front of our eyes. This is wild. This is wild. Um, D. Chris and Julie Albert were his loose acquaintances rather than friends. Yeah, he did say that. He lied. His statements in sworn affidavits, all claiming the Lexus was seized at 5:30 and that he arrived at Dighton at 4:30, were typos, lies. There's no typo there. Imagine if there's communication about this stuff on his phone. Thus, Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully, acting under the color of law, violated Miss Reed's Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable searches and seizures. Absolutely. As a proximate result of this misconduct, Miss Reed was wrongfully prosecuted for O'Keefe's death and made to defend herself in 2 trials in the Superior Court for Norfolk County, resulting in the loss of employment, reputation damages, and millions of dollars of legal expenses, as well as serious emotional and physical distress and injury. And it was serious. It was. In addition to an award of damages for these harms, Miss Reed is entitled to her attorney's fees, costs, interest, and punitive damages. Next. Count 2. Supervisor liability against Buchnick and Tully in their individual capacities. This a supervisor is liable under 42, listing that when the supervisor supervises, trains, or hires a subordinate with deliberate indifference towards the possibility that the subordinate's deficient performances will result in deprivation of an individual's constitutional rights. These people are so fucked. Buchnick and Tully knew or should have known that there was a grave risk that Proctor would fail to investigate the Alberts, with whom he had a close personal relationship, which he had disclosed. This has already come out. Like, you're going to, it's almost like it's already been decided. There's no, I didn't know that he knew them. Like, that's no longer, you can't claim that. Okay. You didn't claim it before. Everybody disclosed everything. Proctor said that he disclosed it and that they had no issue with it. They also knew or should have known that there was grave risk Proctor would wrongly seek to have Miss Reed charged, given the manifest of bias evidence in his text messages, which were sent to them. You guys, this is like, they need to be on the Dumbest Criminals episode. Okay. But they never thought in a million thousand years that their phones, any of their communications would ever be able to become public. I think this case shows us that that all of this should be public. If you think that you can talk like this while doing your job against the person that you fucking hate, like, what? That's how entitled, that's how, like, this should just tell you how crazy that this is a culture. This is a cultural problem for Proctor to think that he could even engage in that type of talking with his higher ups. That's a cultural problem. That means that those people have done it, taught him about it, that they have no issues with it because they do it themselves. That's a cultural problem. And what this lawsuit does is it opens up, Tully, let's get into your phone now. Buchnick, let's get into your phone. We're going to get all up into your phones with your messages with other people, with other cases. They do this shit all the time. These people have no business being in law enforcement. Buchnick and Tully could have taken easily available steps to avoid a constitutionally deficient malicious prosecution of Miss Reed. Those measures include, but are not limited to, one, replacing Proctor with an unbiased investigator that had no personal relationship with anyone involved in Mr. O'Keefe's death. That's why Tyson Barrett, in my opinion, was removed from the Idaho 4 case as like the lead investigator or like the case lead or whatever. Safeguarding the crime scene and the physical evidence, including Mr. O'Keefe's clothing, and 47 pieces of taillight material to prevent anyone from planting, manufacturing, or manipulating evidence. 3, initiating timely searches at the Alberts house. And 4, quickly seizing the cell phones and other forms of electronic evidence in the possession of the Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins, which would have prevented their later manipulation and destruction. Yep. You can put on there Julie Nagels of the world, Sarah Levinson's, the Caitlin, the son, the Tristan Morris. I mean, anybody and everybody that was over at that house. Sherry D, girl, what you doing? What you doing, girl? By not taking any of those measures, Buchnick and Tully permitted Proctor and Tully permitted Buchnick to violate Miss Reed's Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable searches and seizures, and thus themselves violated Miss Reed's Fourth Amendment rights. What did they think was going to happen? This was coming. Like, let's say that he was found guilty. They had to know that this day was coming. I think they've known it for quite some time. I can't wait to see these financials. I want to know how they move money, because they would have been moving money. Lana is super good at what she does. Super nice, but seriously, super. I love the word super duper. Kaylin Albert, did she tip off the phone subpoena? I mean, she does work with the AG's office. Yeah, all that stuff. Unimaginable stuff. I think people are going to get divorced, by the way. I think Nicole is going to be divorcing what's his dick? Brian. They're going to lose everything. Everything. They're going to have judgments on them in the millions upon millions. All of these people. And then they're going to prison. All of these people. Again, it's not a matter of if, it's just when. If you guys thought the Adelson case was something, when you're going to be, taken one by one, the chopping block, no. That's nothing compared to what this is. Like, nothing. Those people weren't cops. Those people didn't work for the government. This is going to be wild. Next is, in these ways and others, Buchnick's conduct constituted condemnation of an acquaintance to Proctor's behavior or gross negligence amounting to deliberate indifference. In these ways and others, Tully's conduct constituted condemnation of or acquaintances to Buchanan's and Proctor's behavior or gross negligence amounting to deliberate indifference. As approximate result of their breaches, Miss Reed was wrongfully prosecuted for Mr. O'Keefe's death, resulting in the loss of employment and all of these things. And again, guys, this wasn't just once, this was twice. I wish that somebody like a Beverly Canone could be on this. Yeah. I could see these type of guys doing that too. Yeah. Beverly was 100% like ugh. Makes me sick, Bev. You make me sick. Next, count 3. This is conspiracy to deprive Miss Reed of her Fourth Amendment rights. Now, this is everybody. So now this is going to get interesting because I want to see if they have any proof that, because what they have is they would have the misdirection of like to lead them away from investigating the McAlberts, like in the Higgins is by lying to them, by lying to the cops. Okay. That's obstruction of justice. Okay. Now, conspiracy is, hey, we have to be all in on this, right? And I think the biggest evidence of that, in my opinion, the biggest evidence of it, well, the two biggest things, them all meeting over at, let's see, Jen, Lank never took the stand in the second trial, so he was never asked about that. He'll be deposed. But Jen going over and Carrie Roberts going over to Lank's house, them going over to Jen McCabe's house, and that's where Proctor and Buchanan went to interview them. How did they know where they lived? Things like that. Oh, here, just tell me. I mean, if you have people's phones, you could probably look up and see if they even had to punch in the address. Now you have these people's phones, and you're going to be able to see how many times these phones were next to each other. Can you imagine that if you could take Buchanan's cell data, his geolocations, and you get someone like a Cy Ray, and you take these people's phones, and you look and you say over this course of this period of time, you do what you do in the Sementelli case. When are these phones moving in concert with each other? That's tipping the scale. That's tipping the scale. Like, holy shit. But so I think that girl that went out and got in trouble by giving the plate over to Turtle Boy because somebody saw that Jen McCabe's truck was over, or Jeep was over there at Proctor's. I think that's, and then that girl lost her job. I think that she may have lost her job, but I think that all of that supports the whole conspiracy. You know, what are you doing over there? But you have to prove it. Again, just tipping that scale. What else? If any of these people's devices show that they were at Canton at between 5 and 5:30, other than the people that are supposed to be there, to be able to get the taillight pieces. The clothing, by not doing anything with the clothing of John O'Keefe's and not securing it the right way immediately, I think that is going to be the icing on the cake for a jury if you go about it like that way, that you knew that early on. So at 2:30 when you were at the hospital to see John O'Keefe to get his clothes, right? You know that you have to secure that in an evidence bag, and you didn't. And why? Well, we have to degrade the DNA. So we have to like throw those clothes around because there's going to be other people's DNA all over that shit. Meaning the true perpetrators that engaged with him. Their DNA would be all over John O'Keefe's clothes. So it was like there's like a 5-parter here. You have to plant evidence on the clothing. You're going to try to get rid of this DNA by degrading it. Okay. By creating a ton of mixtures, making it difficult to separate, making it difficult then to make the profiles. And I think that if you go that route to say that they knew what they had to do with his clothing, they didn't test certain things on purpose because of what it would show. These people were never asked for their DNA to like exclude them. You know, there was unknown male. Remember, I think on the shoe, they had a couple people's DNA on that. So, conspiracy. Now they're trying to say that, hey, as part of their concerted efforts here, and among their many other misrepresentations, the Alberts, McCabe's, Higgins, they agreed with each other to tell investigators that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the house. So again, this is the story on how they're going to present it to the jury. That, hey, he never came in. I don't know. We told them that they were welcome here, but they never made it. You know, that story. That's all a lie. Okay. So they're going to say they conspired and talked about that. And it was after the fact because Jennifer McCabe is calling his phone. Hey, where are you? Hey, where are you? And on one of the times they actually talk. Now, we've never got to hear from Karen Reed on what those calls ever were. Did we get to hear from Karen Reed from the first time, if this was to go to trial, what her version of events are with the whole talking on the phone and when John has to call because he's lost and get directions or this, type of thing. We've never heard from Karen about that. Not in a sense of being asked the questions, cross-examined, things like that. I just don't think this is going to trial. That they had not seen Mr. O'Keefe in the house that night and that Miss Reed made inculpatory statements on the morning of January 29th. Yes, so then they go back. Oh, hey, Miss Reed, or hey, Jennifer McCabe's like, hey, can you come back? I just remembered stuff. I just remembered that Karen was saying these type of things to me. When they made these statements, the House defendants did so only because they were aware that Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully would also act similarly by solely investigating Miss Reed. So Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully knew or should have known that the statements made to them by the House defendants were false, and that obvious and easily obtainable evidence existed demonstrating Mr. O'Keefe went into the house where he was involved in a physical altercation during which he was beaten up, fell back, gashing his head, and attacked by a dog. Instead, because of their close personal and professional ties to the House defendants, Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully agreed with each other to use the House defendants' misrepresentations as the predicate for and implicate direction to conduct an investigation that solely targeted Miss Reed, to the exclusion of everyone and anyone else. Again, you can't just say this stuff. You're gonna have to prove it, and I think the biggest is gonna be these phones. They're texting each other. They're saying, "Hey, we don't want to text, about this. We'll find out more tomorrow." Like those types of things. Again, how I think the jury's gonna. Yes, they fucking conspired. The three civilians, all those civilians, conspired 1,000%. Okay, but did they? How are you going to include Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully in on the conspiracy? That's the hurdle with that, in my opinion. Is including all of them, is the cops with them, and I think their biggest chance there is the whole Brian Albert being a cop, Higgins being a cop, and that they did it for them. They brought them in on the know because of the brotherhood. So Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully knew or should have known that the statements made by to them. Oh, I think I already said that. Where we go? Okay. In furtherance of this plan, so here they're going to break it even more down. In furtherance of this plan, among other unlawful conduct, Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully agreed to A, to continue to handle the investigation even though they had personal relationships with suspects in the murder, which led to unlawful and favorable treatment of potential suspects. B, to continue to handle the investigation even though they had biases against investigating the House defendants because of the House defendants' ties to law enforcement. C, to continue to handle the investigation even though they had exhibited an extreme and personal negative bias toward Karen Reed. I think another thing, well, if they can prove that Proctor wasn't in Karen Reed's phone yet when he was talking about any of her illnesses, I think that would go to show that uh, Proctor and Jen McCabe, potentially also Carrie Roberts, uh, unless Carrie Roberts doesn't say that she ever mentioned about anything about her conditions, that could also give some credence to the fact that they're talking about stuff that wasn't reported. um, to violate rules, policies, and procedures in all aspects of the investigation. They did all of these things. To plant, manufacture, and manipulate evidence, falsify documents, and commit perjury. I personally believe that the reason they were so all about getting John's Ring camera and taking Karen, oh yeah, go there, you guys all go together, and then I'm gonna go get. I just believe that Matt McCabe and Higgins were the ones that were securing some stuff. I also thought it was extremely weird that Gallagher would show up over there at John O'Keefe's house and not where the incident was. You know, where his body was. Like, how did he even just show up there? How was that address even ever? That means that Carrie Roberts' 911 call, or it wasn't a 911 call though. I don't think she called 911. I think she just called the police station. That would have been documented, and then he looks into it to see what address they called him. That's just bizarre. Why he went there? Again, I keep going back to this. I'm going to look the other way for you, but why do I need to get my hands dirty for you? Unless you have something on me, unless I've done something for you in the past. And that's what I see. I think the Proctors and the Alberts are super, super close, like super, super close. I wouldn't even be surprised if there was a phone call from Albert. Like at 2 or 3 in the morning to Proctor. Wouldn't that be some shit? These people have burner phones. To not investigate the Alberts, McCabe's, or Higginses of the worlds. To not investigate and obtain available evidence or timely and appropriately interview suspects. The McCabe's and Alberts coordinated their efforts through text messages, phone calls, and conversations. Higgins and Brian Albert coordinated their efforts through telephone calls and texts on their phones, which were later destroyed or discarded. Finally, Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully coordinated with the Alberts and McCabe's through Proctor's sister, Courtney, who communicated frequently with Julie Albert. Bella is convinced that Proctor's messages with his sister reveal a shit ton. Again, it's not beyond a reasonable doubt. It just has to tip the scale. And if they put a great timeline together on when people are doing what, then you're going to tip the scale. I believe that they have the data. I believe that they do have the data. Yeah, I think Courtney Proctor. Oof. Acting pursuant to the plan, Proctor and Buchnick interviewed the McCabe's and Brian Albert in a cursory manner and all at the same location, midday on January 29th, and Nicole Albert on February 3rd. So, according with the plan, then, and they're including that the plan had to be made before this midday interview, they're going to have to. That's Jen calling them back. You got to have to prove something with that. Proctor and Buchnick only interviewed Higgins once at his attorney's home and did not secure or search his phone or search for communications between him, the Alberts, and the McCabe's. Proctor and Buchnick did not search the Alberts' phones or home where there was likely evidence of Mr. O'Keefe's murder. Brian Albert and Higgins destroyed or discarded their phones, destroying evidence of the murder and cover-up. Again, you're going to have to prove this by 51% right there. That as a result of the conspiracy between and among them, Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully never investigated the House defendants. And instead, Miss Reed was wrongfully arrested and prosecuted in violation of her Fourth Amendment rights. Proctor, Buchnick, Tully, and the House defendants acted in unison and had a particular power of coercion over Miss Reed because Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully were the state police. Employees investigating Mr. O'Keefe's murder and the House defendants were able to direct that investigation solely towards Miss Reed because of their professional and personal relationships, their connections. And then guess what? This is the best thing to say right here because this is so true. Because of their personal and professional connections to Proctor, Buchnick, and Tully and their superior knowledge of police and criminal investigations as a result of their own work in and connection to law enforcement, they knew how to do it. They knew what would be searched and, hey, if we do this and this is what this is going to show, so we can't do that. Like, they knew what to stay away from. This is just jeez. Next, they're never answering this. They're never answering this. Again, this is why Alan Jackson said, if these defendants want to answer for that under oath, we welcome it. Like, here's our complaint. They're never answering this. They're going to default. They have to. There is no way you are subjecting yourself to this. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? This is never happening. Absolutely not. But that doesn't. Oh boy. If these defendants want to answer for that under oath, we welcome it. That's how you answered under oath by proceeding and here answering our complaint and then fucking sue us. So you think Karen Reed this whole defamation? Go ahead, counter. Dare you? There's no way that they are countering. They're in saying that Karen Reed defamed them because guess what? Oh my God. Everything is obtainable. Everything. Their lawyers would be saying you need to let law enforcement make their own case against you and not give them all of this discovery then from this case to be able to use against you for a criminal case. Not answering his admission of guilt. Yeah, but that's what's going to happen. Who cares? This is the whole point, is that who cares? Sue me, get a judgment against me, but I'm not going to prison. They answer this, they're going to prison faster. I think they're going to prison regardless. But if they answer this, I just believe they're going to go to prison quicker. There's a reason that guy's running for district attorney. He's not running for district attorney to say he's going to come in and clean up Norfolk County, okay, and not take care of this. He's coming and running to prosecute these people and clean up, obviously, the county, get people out that need to be out. He's leaving being a federal prosecutor, his dream job, to do this. They're not answering this. There's no way. Let's see where we at here. Count 4, Massachusetts Civil Rights Act. Against all of them. Proctor, Buchnick, Tully, and the House defendants. I love that name, by the way, guys. I can't say it enough. House defendants. Bringing down the House, man. House defendants. They interfered or attempted to interfere with Miss Reed's exercise or enjoyment of her rights under the federal and Commonwealth constitutions and laws through threats, intimidation, or coercion. And they can prove this all day. Among other acts, by manufacturing and planting evidence, not securing the crime scene, not searching the Alberts' home or the Alberts and Higgins' phones, and ignoring exculpatory evidence such as the dog bite injuries and lack of injuries consistent with a vehicle strike. Proctor and Buchnick caused Miss Reed's wrongful indictment, arrest, and prosecution, and thereby interfered and attempted to interfere with her rights under the Fourth Amendment. By falsely representing that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the Albert house, this is all a domino effect. Okay, all the consequences that came from the actions of the House defendants. Okay, they said he never came in the house. Everything's, where's this domino start? It starts with the fucking people inside that house. It starts with people that really, truly were responsible for and caused his death. They never entered in the house, and by relocating his body to the location of the Alberts property where they would claim Miss Reed dropped off Mr. O'Keefe, the Alberts, the McCabe's, and Higgins's caused Miss Reed's wrongful indictment, arrest, and prosecution. Now, something I want to talk about here with this. So, Sherry asked me, Lana, why wouldn't they use the evidence that you have been talking and speaking about with the fact that Jen McCabe does not move for 10 minutes? Okay, Jen McCabe from 12:25 to 12:35 literally does not move her fucking self, her body, nothing. And so Jennifer McCabe could not be getting up off of a couch and walking over to the door and looking and seeing what's going on, go back. Remember all the times that she's saying that she's walking on over, and she can't see anything? Well, listen, in the criminal case, it was way more important and way more valuable to allow that narrative, because you're able to say that every time you kept on walking over, right? You're looking out the window. You didn't see my client hit John O'Keefe. You don't see John O'Keefe looking like laying on the ground, right? And that's way more valuable, way more valuable. But in this case, with this civil suit, you're going to, what I would do is you kept on saying that you kept on walking over, right? Walking over. Well, you're going to have your expert that's going to show that Jennifer McCabe's watch is on her. She said that her watch was on her. Here's the data from the watch. Here's the data from the phone. Her watch, which is on her, does not move from 12:25 to 12:35, right? What is she doing? She also calls and has a phone conversation with John at 12:29. She says it's a butt dial. He answers it. I can't wait to hear what Karen Reed has to say about that. We've never heard an answer from Karen Reed about that, because it would mean that John O'Keefe's still in the car with her or something like that. Did you witness John see that? Oh my God, she's calling me. Hang on, let me answer another call here again. And then I just heard noise in the background. No. I believe that they did have a conversation. Anyways, in this case, you're going to be able to show that when she went up the stairs, if you want, her phone doesn't go with her, but her watch goes up a flight of stairs when she goes into her sister's house. Why do I think that's important? When you want to talk about conspiring, I think it's really important for conspiring. Jennifer McCabe and those other people were not on trial when Karen Read was on trial, so they're going to get objected to. You can't ask. You can't go that route. You're going to go that, but you can go that route here, because if you're talking about conspiring, I think the same holds true when she gets home that night. I think the same holds true when she's supposedly Googling stuff. If she goes up the flight of stairs to go get her sister and wake her sister and brother-in-law up, her watch registers that flight. Why doesn't her phone, which she just got off, like literally just got off and hung up with her husband, telling him to come on over, that we just found him? No, Matt McCabe was already there. How come her phone wouldn't register a flight of stairs? Because she doesn't have it. Because she passed off her husband. Because she passed off. Because I personally believe that Matt was like, oh my God, I left my phone. I left my phone at the house. Hey, let me use your phone. Why would Jen McCabe ever turn over her phone to be searched through? Why would they ever obtain Jennifer McCabe's? They download it. They're going to say that. They're going to say, we obtained Jennifer McCabe's phone. We downloaded it. We got that. We got Carrie Roberts's. They're going to say that they did do that, right? House Long to Die in the Cold was Googled at 2:27. All these butt dials at 2:22. Well, we clearly know that there wasn't a butt dial when Higgins is on the phone walking in and out of the Canton PD's police department. We know that since, if they're all in the know, that was buried. That footage was buried. But clearly it was saved somehow, because how did it exist all those years later when they did turn over? Oh, here's Higgins. Like, if it was on a 30-day auto delete, how do you have the Higgins? How do you have that? That means you had it from before. And let me tell you what these people do in these situations. They all blackmail each other. This brotherhood that they speak of, this fucking, blue line, blackmail line. That's what it is. It's a blackmail line. They all have shit on each other. Proctor immediately dropped, trying to get his job back. Why? I cannot believe that he did an interview with ABC. It's laughable that you'd say that I could plant evidence. If you didn't do any of that, why do you care that all of your text messages or whatever would be seen from all the way to 2013? I'm sure there's going to be some embarrassing stuff on there, but nothing to do with work, nothing to do with my job. Like, there's no way that this would be your first rodeo. There's no way. But again, you can write all this, you can say all this stuff, but you have to be able to tip the scale just 1% based on the evidence. They're going to have their evidence. You have your evidence. Can you tip the scale? I personally believe that they can tip the scale to 99%. Okay? Because I always say that because I'm not physically there. So that's why you're not going to get my 1%. But I think that they can tip the scale 99%. But they just have to tip the scale 51%. And you need a whistleblower. If you can get a whistleblower like fucking Kelly Deaver, Kelly, this is your time to shine, girl. This is your time to shine. I have no idea why she has not literally picked up the phone or walked into Alan Jackson's office and says, we need to talk. I want to tell you all these things, but I'm afraid I'm going to fucking get murdered. What then? There's got to be some whistleblowers out there. It has to be. Because I'll tell you how I know there has to be. Because everything that they're saying in this, if this is true, right? If this is true, people know. People know, right? What if somebody was to say, hey, I'll give you all of this stuff, but I need protect. Like, I'm a dead person if I give you all this stuff, right? I say Deaver. She can say Dever. I don't give a fuck. You're gonna sit here and tell me that after reading this, nobody out there is thinking to themselves like a Julie Nagel or a Sarah Levinson. I mean, who else was there? What about all those girls that were there earlier? Fabiano. I mean, how can all these people just keep their fucking mouths shut? Um, I mean, I can't believe that Cellbride's out there parading around saying, "Yeah, it was just a glitch in our system." So the 227 call or Google search really didn't happen at that time. Do you know how many cases should be coming back and being appealed based off of what they're now claiming? Because if that Cellbrite's being used in other cases, right, to secure convictions off of what they're trying to say somebody was searching on their freaking phone, and it's like, wait a second, I did that shit after the fact, after when I knew you guys are telling me that so and so is missing, or whatever the case may be. I'm over here taking one of my tabs and I'm Googling after the fact. But then because I opened that tab at that time, they could have presented that evidence and it looks like I committed premeditated murder. And here's Cellbrite doing podcasts. Like, you guys are admitting that that's a huge problem. Because you're saying it's wrong and that it wasn't Googled until this time. But it went based off of the time when the tab was opened, not based off of when the actual Google search was made. Do you understand how long was that a glitch for? What? So John O'Keefe was struck on what? January 29th, 2022, right? Think about this. Ready? Okay. Well, when did you guys find out about that glitch? Not until 2023 or 2024, right? So that means, I don't know, the Idaho 4 murders case, they Cellbrite downloaded all this shit. So all of their phones and their Google searches or whatever they were doing with their phones, we got to go look through that because it had been on the same version. I just can't believe. Like, that's mind-blowing to me. They're like, no, that's not how it works. It actually works like this. Well, do you know how many cases across the United States of America have used Cellbrite the way that Karen's defense team used it? And they put it in here. So that's the other thing. It's not like they're running from that. They put it in here. Where is it? Here it is. After the physical altercation, Higgins left the house and drove to the Canton Police Department in the middle of the night. He later told investigators he had to do some administrative work, but then changed his story subsequently, stating that he drove to the station because he had to move cars in the parking lot due to the snowstorm. However, video from inside the station shows Higgins walking down the hallway and surreptitiously entering offices while wearing a hoodie to obscure his face. Surveillance video outside reveals Higgins is transporting a large bag from one vehicle to another before driving away. And I believe that they're talking about this bag for a reason. After leaving the police station, Higgins and Brian Albert continued to coordinate their stories by calling each other multiple times in the early morning hours and ultimately spoke with each other on their cell phones at 2:22 a.m. How about who did he speak to? Who did he speak to when he was actually at the Canton Police Department? That's going to come out. The phone records. Who was Higgins actually on the phone with? Who was he physically on the phone with? Was he leaving a voicemail? He was talking to somebody. Are they going to try to say, like, no, he must have been leaving a message? Or like, Then they say that, you know, ultimately spoke with each other on their cell phone at 2:22 a.m. Later, both Brian Albert and Higgins denied the existence of these phone calls. I personally believe that the phone call is between Higgins and Matt McCabe. Later, both Higgins and Alberts denied the existence of these phone calls. And then when confronted with their existence by a separate law enforcement agency or agent, a non, MSP and non-CPD law enforcement agency at a separate proceeding, they then coordinated the same exact lie, falsely claiming the multiple calls and answers were just butt dials. Again, if that doesn't show conspiracy, conspiring, I think it does. However, 5 minutes after the Higgins Albert call, this is why I think that Matt McCabe was the fucking dialer of this, of the punching in How Long to Die, his fat fucking fingers. However, 5 minutes after the Higgins Albert call, Miss McCabe performed a Google search on her phone at 2:27 a.m. How Long to Die in Cold, misspelling the first word. Fat fingers lead to misspells. And now what's interesting is that they're going to say, wow. Okay, what's interesting is that this is where it gets to be like, wow. Wow. What are the odds that literally Cellbrite finds a glitch in their system from an event like this that was going on at within 5 minutes of this setting up the body and, deciding that, hey, we're going to move in, relocate it, all this stuff, that it's also when Jen is when they were saying that the House Long to Die happened. But that, nope, it really only happened for the first time at 6:23 a.m. when she Google searched it, basically, and I'm the one been screaming that you guys check the body cams or those dash cams. Remember Matt McCabe wanted to see those. Why did he want to see those? Because he wanted to see if he was on them, because he knew he was there. Okay, he wanted to see where he was on them. Also, it shows you back-to-back phone calls that Jen supposedly makes, and they're to her husband. But really what it looks like to me is that Matt's calling because he's calling his cell phone to make it seem like she just called him because he's the one that's on his toes thinking about all of this. And then that's why I believe that the phone and the watch separate, because when she goes upstairs, her watch registers the flight of stairs at her sister's house, and that's why the phone doesn't register the flight of stairs. And to me, you show that. Now that is some serious motherfucking, now you're talking about conspiracy. Now you're talking about planning. Okay. Now you're talking about how a husband had to get his hands on her phone type of shit. Because they knew, he knew that he had Googled and used her phone to do that. And so he needed to re-Google it. And then at some point, he had to tell Jen about it. And then Jen had to tell everybody with the story of that she told me to Google How Long to Die in the Cold. That's how that all happened, in my opinion. And I think the digital evidence proves that. Otherwise, why isn't Jen, when she goes upstairs, why isn't the phone registering a flight of stairs? Also, I don't think that anything happened in the basement because there's no flight of stairs on Jennifer McCabe's phone or watch when she's physically at the house of her sisters that night. And that's why I said that right away when I was like, there's no way that either they're running up and down stairs at that house where that Jen McCabe is, because her phone nor her watch have any. And then the night before, when she goes to bed, when she goes up the flight of stairs, again, to go to bed, her watch registers the flight of stairs. Her phone does not. And then after she's upstairs and her phone did not go upstairs, that's when the 2:27 Google search happens. That's why I believe, and I think that if you can get your hands on Matt McCabe stuff, I've always said this, you're going to have a motherfucking field day, because Matt McCabe has all the shit. And I don't care when I say get your hands on his stuff, you don't need his phone anymore. Not with the way that the world works right now. Their geolocations, um, depending on who they're. I would love to know who their provider is. Yeah, they're so fucked. They're not answering this. They're not answering this. There's just no way. There's no way. Um, Miss Reed began the search for Mr. O'Keefe on January 29th, just before 5 a.m., when she woke and realized he had not returned home. She phoned House Defendant Jennifer McCabe. Oh, I think this helps with that too. By Jennifer McCabe saying, "Let's go back to, your house." So, it was because, in my opinion, again, this is my opinion. Okay, if Karen Reed has her vehicle, right? Karen Reed has her vehicle. She comes over to Jen's with her vehicle. Jen McCabe needed to have, what's her name? Karen away from her vehicle and have that vehicle not at the crime scene because they needed to get their hands on it. That's why, hey, let's go back at the house. And then when they got there, hey, I think what was going to happen is that the original plan was, in my opinion, is that until Carrie Roberts kind of showed up there, it was going to be Matt McCabe that was going to drive, here, go back there and I'll come help you guys like it's a snowstorm type of thing. Okay. And since Carrie Roberts was there, it's like, here, drive back there and then you guys all leave. But we need to have her car. We need that vehicle. We need that vehicle. That's why they did not go to 34 Fairview right away. Because they needed that vehicle. They needed that vehicle to be, and that's why there's all those deletions on that Ring camera. That's what makes the most sense to me. And they say it right here as to, but I think the better sell for me is that they needed that car to be at, they needed Karen away from that vehicle. They needed access to that vehicle. Miss McCabe insisted that Miss Reed drive to Miss McCabe's house rather than drive to 34 Fairview Road. Okay. Here, drive over here. And that's why Karen's like, you sick bitch. Okay. Which Reed did. The two of them were then joined by Carrie Roberts, and the three of them left the McCabe residence. However, rather than go to 34 Fairview, oddly, Miss McCabe directed them to go back to Mr. O'Keefe's home, where Miss Reed had just come from. After the three of them finally drove to 34 Fairview, the illogical Miss McCabe, oh, that's the other part. She said that she went in there and was like, went upstairs and all that stuff. Guess what? We have her phone data. We have her watch data. Miss McCabe does not go up a flight of stairs when she gets back to John O'Keefe's house. She testified that she went up and looked in his room and that, Karen wasn't doing anything. And that she went up and talked to Kaylee. Guess what? That's all lies. There are no flights of stairs on her watch or her phone. So if anybody wants to say, oh, well, she must have left her phone in the car and it didn't register a flight of stairs. No, she had her watch on. So that can just go right out the window. Her watch registers no flights of stairs once back at that house. And she said that she went upstairs and that she looked in John's room and that she also talked to Kaylee. Okay. Well, that none of that happened upstairs. Now, the illogical McCabe directed route to 34 Fairview was intentional. It allowed the House defendants more time to finish creating the scene and hiding evidence before Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered on the Alberts lawn and first responders arrived. Well, I personally believe it was because of the vehicle. I believe that she needed to, hey, leave the vehicle here, and it could have also been to tip off the people over at 34 Fairview. Hey, she wants to drive over. I'm having her come here. if you guys need anything to do anything, whatever, if you need to get the car, get the dog, I don't know, whatever you need to do, I would think that those arrangements would have already been made throughout the night. So yeah. So then here, as they approached the house with Miss Roberts driving, I would have been putting how they left Miss Reed. Saw Mr. O'Keefe almost immediately. She screamed for Miss Roberts to stop the vehicle and jumped from the moving car to run to Mr. O'Keefe. She began rendering aid, including CPR. As the House defendants had planned, Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered in front of the Alberts' house near a flagpole and fire hydrant on the left side of the Alberts' property, as seen from the roadside. The Ford Edge, which had been parked in a position to obscure Mr. O'Keefe's body in the middle of the night, had been moved. So basically, what I'm telling you that the phone call was also about, it was also about to say, listen, when she wakes up in the morning and she's going to call you, we're protecting the body right now by a vehicle. Okay. When she calls you, we're getting like basically we need to move this vehicle, because how this is leading me to believe is that they think that the vehicle was there. That the vehicle was there like all the way up and until basically they found the body. They were making sure that people driving by, because I even mentioned that. I was like, I can't imagine that nobody drove at any point in time from 2:30 to 6. Not one car drove there. Well, the plow truck did twice. The plow truck didn't see a body and then saw a vehicle. And then I think Lucky's testimony about that the road was already blocked off. I don't think that he's wrong in the time of that. I think that somebody would have been relocating somebody, and I think that it would have just been somebody like a what do you call it? Like a Higgins. Like somebody just sitting out there blocking people. Hey, yeah, go that way. Using like their badge. I've always thought that was a possibility, that he wasn't wrong about the time of that. And they really were blocking off that street so that nobody could come down. I don't know. I just think that it's all risky, but when you're being protected, who gives a fuck? I also think that I would love to know the clothes that Higgins was in that morning. What was he wearing? If he's in the same clothes, I don't know. These people are just sick. These people are fucking disgusting. They're totally going to prison, though. It's just a matter of time. Anyways, while Miss Roberts joined Mr. Reed with administering CPR, Miss McCabe did not help or even approach Mr. O'Keefe. Rather, she sat in the cab of the vehicle, called 911, and reported that, quote unquote, there's a man passed out in the snow. There's a man passed out in the snow. A man. Despite knowing that her brother-in-law, Brian Albert, a police officer and first responder, was just feet away inside the house, Miss McCabe never went into the house or requested that the Alberts come down to help Mr. O'Keefe. Rather, as Mr. O'Keefe lying dead in the snow, Miss McCabe stood and watched with no fear, urgency, or even concern for her family members residing mere feet away. The CPD were the first on the scene shortly after 6 a.m. At the time, there was no evidence that Mr. O'Keefe had been hit by a vehicle. In fact, the evidence suggested just the opposite. His body did not show signs of trauma commonly associated with being struck by a car. For good reason, the ranking CPD officer on the scene, Sergeant Michael Lank, opined on a telephone call captured on a dash cam that Mr. O'Keefe looked like he had been in a fight. Moreover, the initial search conducted by Canton police officers revealed that there was no evidence or no vehicle debris on the lawn at 34 Fairview, let alone any debris at or near Mr. O'Keefe's body. Not a single piece of taillight material was discovered on the lawn that morning or in the roadway, notwithstanding multiple searches and the use of a leaf blower to remove the snow. Tellingly, despite the commotion outside, including more than a dozen first responders, 3 police cruisers, 2 ambulances, a ladder fire engine, all with their emergency lights flashing, and at least 2 civilian vehicles, plus Miss Reed's screams upon finding Mr. O'Keefe's body. No one from the Alberts house, including police officer Brian Albert, ever went outside to see what was happening, let alone help. They wanted to avoid scrutiny from the police investigators. He's basically saying that they couldn't do anything because of what the condition that he would have been in. I don't. Sergeant Lank was a longtime friend of the Alberts and the first law enforcement officer to enter the house. He spoke to the Alberts and the McCabe's. Pursuant to their plan, the Alberts and the McCabe's told Sergeant Lank that Mr. O'Keefe had never entered the Alberts' house the night before. The Alberts and McCabe's statements were false. Mr. O'Keefe arrived at and entered the house or garage where he was assaulted, attacked by the Alberts dog, and suffered a fatal injury to the back of his head. Despite Mr. O'Keefe's injuries being wholly inconsistent with the story the House defendants were now telling him, neither Sergeant Lank nor any other member of CPD searched the house to determine whether the occupants or anyone else were involved in Mr. O'Keefe's death. Nor did they request to search the occupants' cell phones, observe their bodies for evidence of a fight, or even secure the scene where Mr. O'Keefe's body was found. They failed to do so because of bias born of friendships and loyalty in favor of the Alberts and McCabe's. After Sergeant Lank returned to the CPD 3 hours after the discovery of Mr. O'Keefe's body, so he gets on scene at 6:26, then he heads back at 9. Okay. And more than 2 hours after being interviewed at the Alberts home that morning, Miss McCabe called Sergeant Lank to report that she recalled additional information. As part of the plan to implicate Miss Reed and remove suspicion from the House defendants, she falsely told Sergeant Lank that Miss Reed told her twice that morning, "I hope I didn't hit him." Now, this is why I believe that they were prepared for a search at that point. Okay, think about it. Meaning, if you're calling him back over, it's because whoever the heck, like a Higgins, hey, I got all the stuff, like I got some stuff from over at, I think a little pieces were taken of the taillight earlier. Because by calling him back over and saying these things, you would have to be prepared, okay, that they're going to go out to that area over there and see if there's anything on the ground. Catch my drift? You can't say this and then, as these guys are law enforcement, expect that these people aren't going to possibly come back and go searching and looking around and see if there's anything over there. So I just don't think that they did it, you know? I just don't think that they did it. So, but yeah, because you would be like, what do you mean hit him? Hit him how? I don't know, maybe with our car or something, you know? But they didn't do that. Like, they just didn't search yet. And I think the reason that story involved even more so is because supposedly now, the only person I would love to hear from is Karen Reed with this, is what type of commotion she was making about, like, oh my God, I backed out this morning. I hit fucking John's car. You know what I mean? So, I hope I didn't hit him. More than a year later, at a separate proceeding, Miss McCabe changed her story on this topic yet again. In furtherance of the House defendant's plan, Miss McCabe then falsely reported that Miss Reed outright confessed to hitting him. Just outright. Oh, that was fucking whack, motherfucker. Oh, shit. Outright just confesses. Michael Proctor. Yeah, bring on Michael Proctor. Okay, moving back on over here to the final counts, which are. Okay. Brian Elbert and Brian Higgins also caused Miss Reed's wrongful indictment, arrest, and prosecution by destroying or discarding their phones, eliminating exculpatory evidence. The House defendants thereby interfered and attempted to interfere with Miss Reed's rights under the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. Miss Reed's wrongful indictment, arrest, and prosecution were intricately coerced under Massachusetts law. Wow. Moreover, the House defendants and Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully, their conduct amounted to threats, intimidation, coercion designed to force Miss Reed to give up her defense and plead guilty to a crime she did not commit. Yes, that is why they overcharged her. This is what they were trying to railroad her. Okay, this is legal way railroading somebody. As a proximate result of defendants' actions, Miss Reed was wrongfully prosecuted for Mr. O'Keefe's death, resulting in loss of employment, all those things. But they were trying to get her to take a plea deal by doing this. And that's when she went out and hired Alan Jackson. Yeah. God, did your dick not get sucked last night, buddy? Daniel Fisher? I'm so sorry. Because any guy that comes in at 9 o'clock in the morning talking about what you're talking about, I mean, there must not be anything else to talk about. Like, you didn't get head, you didn't get a handy. Man, this is the last thing I would do with my time. Someone send him a Gossip Girl. Jeez. Okay. Count 5. Common law. Yeah. They definitely manufactured and planted evidence. They definitely did not secure the crime scene. And not searching the Alberts' home or the Alberts and the Higgins' their phones, and ignoring exculpatory evidence such as Mr. O'Keefe's dog bite injuries and lack of injuries consistent with a vehicle strike, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully caused Miss Reed's indictment, arrest, and prosecution. Absolutely. Miss Reed's indictment, arrest, and prosecution occurred without probable cause because they were based on false, manufactured, manipulated, and planted evidence. And they all knew it from jump. And that's going to be the thing. Karen Reed can prove all of this, in my opinion, beyond a reasonable doubt. I believe that. Think about if it was this way. Can these people be prosecuted? If this was a criminal case and this was beyond a reasonable doubt to everything that what she's claiming, does she have it to win even on those standards? And I believe that she does. I believe that she does. These people are fucking wild. They've done this before. Karen Reed's not the first one. Karen Reed is not the first person that these people have done this to. Not the second, not the third, not the fourth, not the fifth. Yeah. By falsely representing that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the Alberts' house, and by relocating his body to the location on the Alberts' property where Jennifer McCabe would claim Miss Reed dropped off Mr. O'Keefe, Brian, and Nicole Albert, the McCabe's and Higgins caused Miss Reed's wrongful indictment. arrest and prosecution. Yep. Brian Albert and Brian Higgins also caused Miss Reed's wrongful indictment and arrest and prosecution by destroying or discarding their phones, eliminating exculpatory evidence. Now, the intentional infliction of emotional distress, I mean, she's going to be awarded $100 million. $100 mil. $100 mil. And that's going to be the last count there. Oh, no, that's actually count 6. I think by charging her or by retrying her the second time, like that's going to play into the huge argument. Like, even after all of this shit was revealed in trial 1, right? And you get to see the discovery and you're going through the stuff. It's not like you can't claim. You chose to then try her again, right? The defendants kind of perverted the justice system, allowed Mr. O'Keefe's true killer to escape liability, and threatened to imprison Miss Reed. It is the type of behavior that threatens civilized society and is therefore extreme and outrageous. It is. They framed a woman for murder. They framed her for murder. That is criminal. This is a civil case. But everything that's being alleged in here and what they did is fucking criminal. They not only caused the death of John O'Keefe, then they did everything after the fact, their accessories after the fact, then their capacity in the role with law enforcement. I mean, I can't wait to see Tully in a jumpsuit. Civil conspiracy number 7. The preceding paragraphs are incorporated therein, and then Proctor Buchanan, Tully, the Alberts, the McCabe's, and Higgins shared a common design and acted in concert to frame Miss Reed for Mr. O'Keefe's death. Exactly. That's exactly what they did. And that's why you're going to win on conspiracy. It's the frame of Karen Reed was not attainable by one person. No one person could frame Karen Reed here. Okay. The frame job of Karen Reed, just like in anything, and that's why I laugh when people are like, oh, you think all of us ran on it? Yeah. You're a triangulator. It starts with triangulation, and then it goes on to just the core people know what's up. And that's when you can totally see in an investigation where it's like polar opposites, where like, why is this person over here doing this? Because they're not in on the bang up over here. So as part of their concerted efforts and among their many other misrepresentations, the Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins agreed with each other to tell investigators that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the home. So I broke this down to say, this is why this is going to work. From jump, hey, he never entered the house. Then all of a sudden, Higgins wanted to say that some guy ducked his head in that was like, remember, he's going to try to lean on that, but bye-bye. Him then going to the Canton Police Department blows that off. Like, him saying that he was tired, he wanted to go to bed, long day of drinking. So 2, that they did not see Mr. O'Keefe in the house that night, and that Miss Reed made inculpatory statements on the morning of January 29th. When they made these statements, the House defendants did so only because they were well aware that Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully would also act similarly by solely investigating Miss Reed. Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully knew or should have known that the statements made to them by the House defendants were false, and that obvious and easily obtainable evidence existed demonstrating Mr. O'Keefe went into the house, where he was involved in a physical altercation during which he was beaten up, fell back, gashing his head, and attacked by a dog. Instead, because of their close personal and professional ties to the House defendants, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully agreed with each other to use the House defendants' misrepresentations as a predicate for an implicit direct to conduct an investigation that solely targeted Miss Reed. This last one here. In furtherance of the conspiracy, Proctor, Tully, Bukaki agreed to fabricate, plant, and manipulate evidence purporting to show that Miss Reed's vehicle hit Mr. O'Keefe. Pursuant to their plan, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully carried out multiple overt acts, including damaging the taillight on Miss Reed's vehicle while it was in the town of Canton Sallyport, not securing the crime scene, and depositing taillight pieces on January 29th, prior to the MSP CERT team's arrival on site. And I think that my version of events is a tad bit better, because the time that they arrived there, when you're talking about like a tight squeeze or whatever, they got just the littlest of pieces, okay, from going there earlier in the day when Karen was drove over there by Jen and Carrie Roberts, and her car was, left alone. Yeah. In addition, Proctor deposited some of the broken taillight pieces on Mr. O'Keefe's clothing while the clothing was in his unprotected custody. Proctor also deposited glass, alleged to have been from a cocktail glass, on the bumper of Miss Reed's Lexus SUV sometime prior to the vehicle's processing by MSPCL on February 1st. And that's how early you can then tell, that this all began. And that's what's going to be amazing, is this timeline, is when stuff could have been physically planted. Which means it's early on. Thank you. Much love back. These people are just trash cans. They're criminals. They're entitled fucks, and they've cheated. These people didn't go into law enforcement because they love and respect our constitutional rights. That these are the type of people that get into power positions because they've never had it. They needed to get it this way. Hey, you're going to respect me. Hey, you're going to respect me now. Those type of people. Hey, I would love to know where Tully came from and what his background is. I would love to know more about his background. Little peepee Tully. Little babies. What a bunch of little babies. Another part of the conspiracy was to take coordinated steps to ignore and destroy potentially exculpatory evidence that pointed to other suspects like the Alberts and Higgins. The McCabe's, the Alberts, and Higgins coordinated through text messages, phone calls, and on I love when they use the word information and belief, because that means that more is coming out in discovery. Higgins and Brian Albert coordinated through telephone calls and on information and belief texts on their phones, which were later destroyed or discarded. Finally, Proctor coordinated with Alberts and McCabe through his sister. They don't say upon information and belief, they just have it. Acting pursuant to the plan, Proctor and Buchanan interviewed the McCabes and Brian Albert in a cursory manner the morning of January 29th and Nicole Albert on February 3rd. All told the same false story that Mr. O'Keefe never entered the house. Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully also only interviewed Higgins once with his attorney at his attorney's home, and did not secure or search Higgins' phone or search for communications between him, the Alberts, and the McCabes. Pursuant to the coordinated plan, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully also did not search the Alberts' phones or home where there was likely evidence of O'Keefe's murder. Further, Brian Albert and Higgins destroyed or discarded their phones, destroying evidence of the murder and cover-up. Oh, I think I already said that part. My bad. Oh, this was the part I wanted to say. Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, and the House defendants acted in unison and had a particular power of coercion over Miss Reed. And she's like, bitch, give me a jury. Give me a jury. And I'm over here like, this is never going to trial. These people are never answering to this. And that's why, again, I cannot stress it enough what that means right here. When Alan Jackson says, if these defendants want to answer, answer this complaint for, if these defendants want to answer for that under oath, we welcome it. Here's how we're handling it. He's like basically saying, I dare you to answer this. I dare you to answer this. All of you. So, they're not going to. They're not going to. People can say, oh, they're going to move for a motion to dismiss. This ain't getting dismissed. Okay. They're, no. Mm-mm. Again, it's a matter of when, not if. These people are going to prison. I want to play you guys something. And then I'm going to close this out.
Kearney, both in concert and separately, have defamed and
say they plan to sue her for defamation.
Any discovery that goes to prove that this conspiracy is true is discoverable.
And here's the text from the actual document. Defendant Reed and Mr. Kearney, both in concert and separately, have defamed and substantially injured the Commonwealth witnesses.
Colin Oliver was not there, and Jennifer Gabe did not Google how long did I call. Those are just two things these sticks do. Both incorrect. Both incorrect.
Building and building and building until eventually they are going to explode.
Reed drunkenly backed her SUV into O'Keefe while dropping him off at the gathering.
Now, 5 people who Reed's lawyers have repeatedly tried to blame say they plan to sue her for defamation.
Breaking news, it appears the McAlberts are launching an attack, suing people for defaming them. Let's watch.
Brian and Nicole Albert, Jen and Matt McCabe, and Brian Higgins claim in a new court brief that Karen Reed concocted a, quote, vile work of fiction in order to, quote, evade responsibility for her actions.
Blueprint is pick out witnesses, destroy their reputations, attack them, torture them.
The 5 witnesses say they also plan to sue Aidan Carney, the blogger known as Turtle Boy, who promoted Reed's version of the case.
And this whole thing, I've vocalized my opinions about the Karen Reed case and the witnesses involved in it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the episode of The Lawyer You Know. And I have had so many questions come out today about an article talking about Turtle Boy and Karen Reed potentially being sued by the McCabe's, the Alberts, and all for defamation.
And there's our favorite attorney who's so good looking he can rock a 70s porn mustache and still look good.
Let's get to it.
Look at this. This is hilarious. No.
Wow, what an opening.
We are going to start with this article. Karen Reed case, Alberts, McCabe's, Higgins.
Brian Higgins.
Eyeing defamation claims against Reed and Turtle Boy. The witnesses from Reed's high-profile case are denouncing her cover-up claims as a vile work of fiction.
The handsome lawyer know was just reading an article. We got our hands on the actual motion. Let's look at it.
This feels incredibly connected to the intentional infliction of emotional distress claims made by the O'Keefe family against Karen Reed.
As a refresher, Paul O'Keefe, on behalf of John O'Keefe's estate, filed a lawsuit against the various bars for wrongful death.
This is her defense against that. What she just filed is her defense against this ridiculous lawsuit by the O'Keefes.
and inflicting emotional distress on the kids.
In the civil lawsuit, in which she wants to include some of the defendants on this list potentially, or some law enforcement officers. Lawyers for Brian and Nicole Albert.
Brian, last name Albert.
Nicole Albert, Albert.
Jennifer and Matthew McCabe.
Jen!
Matthew McCabe.
And Brian Higgins.
Brian Higgins.
Argue in a new brief recently served on Reed's legal team. Anybody has access to that brief? Send it to me.
I know a lot of people that want to get their hands on his briefs, but we got it first.
All 5 witnesses attended an ill-fated after party at the Alberts home in Canton, where O'Keefe's badly wounded body was found in the snow on January 29, 2022. Prosecutors allege Reed drunkenly backed her SUV into O'Keefe while dropping him off at the gathering, but she claimed investigators and after-party guests conspired to frame her. During a September hearing in the civil case, Reed's lawyers announced her plans to bring legal action against several witnesses and Massachusetts State Police investigators, further complicating the proceedings.
In September, Karen Reed's attorneys announced that they were going to file third-party claims against various defendants. The question before the court is, should they consolidate all the cases into this one or have Karen file separate lawsuits? Let's watch.
Reed is seeking to combine her conspiracy and civil rights claims with the wrongful death suit for efficiency's sake. The Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins are asking that Reed's motion be denied and her claims filed in a separate case. They want this to be in a separate case because then they can respond and countersue her potentially for defamation all in one court.
A part of the argument that McAlbert's attorneys are making is if the courts consolidate all the cases, it's going to expand the time for which the current case will actually take.
The Commonwealth witnesses vigorously dispute defendant Reed's allegations and will defend against these false claims. That their defense will include motions to dismiss, a potential request to move the claims to federal court, and counterclaims against both Reed and Turtle Boy blogger Aiden Carney.
That ain't never fucking happening. They're so full of shit. Do it.
For defamation and other torts that they have committed individually and in concert. That's a big deal. Lawyers for the Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins said they plan to seek justice in a separate action over allegations that Reed and Carney defamed and substantially injured them through a myriad of false statements. Combining those defamation claims with Reed's conspiracy claims, the O'Keefe's wrongful death lawsuit is procedurally improper at this stage and will make for a much more sprawling case, the lawyers argue. Notably absent from the opposition brief is Brian and Nicole Albert's nephew, Colin Albert.
How are you? Please state your name and spell your last name. I do not remember.
Who was also present at 34 Fairview the night that O'Keefe died.
The evidence has established that little Colin Albert left the house at approximately 12:15. John O'Keefe didn't arrive to 12:24.
You need to have specific statements. And if you're saying Karen Reed and Turtle Boy separately, those are 2 very different defendants. Turtle Boy has said so much more than Karen Reed.
This is why I believe Colin Albert was involved in the murder. Colin Albert lied his fucking face off. You know how because people are like, do you guys think, well, Colin Albert didn't do it? Loophole lawyer, who's very funny guy, very witty guy. His 2 thing is Colin Albert did not kill John O'Keefe. The real person who killed John O'Keefe was
Brian Higgins.
Brian Higgins. He does that thing. He thinks it was just Higgins.
Sending somebody flowers.
And Colin Albert was not there, and Jennifer Gabe did not Google how long did I cold. Those are just 2 things he sticks to. Both incorrect. Both incorrect.
Karen Reed's been more coy.
He's right. Jennifer McCabe did not Google how long did I am cold. I have proven that with digital evidence. I'm sorry, but phone was downstairs. Jen was upstairs. The Google search happened downstairs on that first level. Matt McCabe had that phone. Also, the next morning, she goes, the Google search for house long to die in the cold. When that happened as well, she goes into the house right after supposedly this Google search happened. Well, only her watch goes up the flight of stairs, not the phone. Who had her phone? Well, none other than Matt McCabe. Matt McCabe, in my opinion, is the Google searcher. His fatty little fucking fingers.
They know more than they're saying, or you guys know who we're talking about, or you know who was in that house, or whatever it may be, which, can potentially get the factual statements.
And here's the text from the actual document. Defendant Reed and Mr. Kearney, both in concert and separately, have defamed and substantially injured the Commonwealth witnesses.
Turtle Boy has come out and said a lot more than that. But Turtle Boy is also going to say, free speech and these are my opinions and whatever. But opinions can become defamatory if they are turning more into factual allegations or something that can be proven and disproven. And a fact like this person committed this crime or those are the real killers, statements like that are not necessarily just opinion statements, especially when you say, here's all the evidence I have. Here are the people I'm talking to. I've got inside sources.
What about if I say the real killer is
Brian Higgins?
Would that be defamatory?
This is why I believe Colin Albert was involved in the murder. Colin Albert lied his fucking face off.
So we can get how those defamatory statements could come into a lawsuit and be allegations of defamation. The number one and most important defense to every defamation case is absolute truth.
Boom.
So what is this going to open the door to? On the O'Keefe, law enforcement, Alberts, McCabe side, if they're going to try to say Turtle Boy was Karen Reed's agent or they conspired to do this together, one thing they might want is to try to get more communication between Karen Reed and Aiden Carney and prove they were working together and she was feeding him information and spilling stuff to him.
And that's the exact allegations being made by the McAlbert's lawyer in the opposition.
So it's going to open up discovery for all these people that are planning on filing these either lawsuits or counterclaims that Karen Reed's going to get a lot more information than she has. I think there's a lot of secrets on that side. Not sure how many secrets there are on the Reed Carney side because, in fact, they either were or currently are criminal defendants having to turn over their cell phone, having to turn over.
Boom, bitch. Like I said, exactly what I said. That's exactly what I've been saying. Discovery? Are you kidding me? The McAlberts, nothing has been discovered from them because it's all been hidden. They were protected. Karen Reed, her whole fucking life, everything out there, even the stuff between her and Turtle Boy out there. If Matt really did those, it's worse if Matt did it. You guys, if Matt did it, it's way worse. It's way worse if Matt did it. Matt did it then on her phone because they never thought that her phone would actually be the one that got taken. Okay? It's way worse that it was on her phone. And it's way worse that then he arrives and when she goes into that house, she doesn't even have her phone when she's going to wake up her sister and go upstairs and whatnot. It is 1000% worse that Matt McCabe was using his wife's phone. And she didn't know anything about it at first. I'm telling you that right now. She was fucking shocked, I think, when Turtle Boy said what he said to her. When he went up to her and talked about the whole house long, Google search, what? I think she was shocked because I think her fucking husband, okay? And he, listen. Think about the gangsters back in the day, okay? When you're married to gangsters back in the day, the gangsters aren't telling their wives what the hell they're doing, okay? They're off with their boys doing their thing and setting everything up and blah, blah. But they're getting their wives to do what? Be their alibis, do this, do that, okay? I'm sorry, but Jen McCabe, Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, they're not going to take orders from a female, first of all. Okay, they run this shit. Okay, they run this shit. And then you got Matt thinking, oh, you need me because I'm IT. Then you got Matt trying to throw his little. These people are trash. But yeah, they were told things on a need to know basis. And when you need to know, I'll let you know what you need to do and what you need to say.
Much more information, having their lives dug into and witnesses against them dug up and coming forward a lot more than the people on the other side of this lawsuit than Karen Reed and Aiden Carney.
Wow, Peter's as smart as he is handsome. He brings up a great point. Any party that files a defamation lawsuit subjects themselves to discovery. What we want to see is Brian Higgins and Brian Albert's telephone records and, of course, where they were on that morning between the hours of 12 midnight and 6 a.m.
Plaintiff has sued defendant, which would mean that, McCabe's, Alberts, Higgins have sued defendant, could be Turtle Boy or Karen Reed, for making false statements about him, her, it. So it has to be about them. It can't just be I'm innocent, I didn't hit John O'Keefe, something else happened.
Yeah. No, I want to show this part. Okay.
Place within a very small area or the company that owns this channel. You could interpret this document as a bluff by the McAlberts to file a defamation claim. In fact, nothing's stopping them from filing it today. While we never give legal advice on this channel, and if you ever have a legal question, consult your own attorney, we won't stop producing these videos until the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
is brought to justice. This crime was very simple to solve because it took place within a very small area over a very short period of time with a very limited amount of suspects.
Dude, did you just see that? Did you just see that? Look at this. Look
Brian
at this.
Higgins,
Is brought to justice. This crime was very simple to solve because it took place within a very small area over a very short period.
Look at that time frame. What have I been telling you guys? Jen McCabe did not move a muscle from 12 this time frame, 12:25 to 12:35
period of time.
Boom. He's saying the crime happened between the time that I've been saying that's when Jen McCabe does not move a muscle. Okay. There is no Jen McCabe walking back and forth over to the door or the window to see and look out. Okay. Her watch does not move it takes any steps. Her phone does not take any steps. Okay. Because I personally believe that this would mean one of two things: that you ran inside the house like you did, and you ran right back. Okay. Because like if you like ran in, hey, come on, let's go. And then then you ran back to your car type of thing. And then you're getting in your car and you're actually sitting in a car. Okay. And that you're in a car. So, I mean, for you not to it's one thing to say that somebody was sitting in a chair and a couch or something like that. No, this person, in my opinion, didn't have the ability to take any steps. And that means they're in a car, which means to be sitting in this driveway in a car and whatever the hell you could have been potentially witnessing, and you're confined not to take any steps. And during the time frame that she's sitting and not taking any steps between 12:25 and 12:35 are very, very crucial phone calls and text messages.
With a very limited amount of suspects. One or more of these 10 people has to be the killer of John O'Keefe.
Chloe. You have Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Higgy Bear, Caitlin, Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, Sarah Livingston. Little Brian, Chloe, Julie Nagel. I'm sorry. You need to put, what are you talking about? You need to put Colin on here.
That's how easy this is. Once you remove the kids and the McCabes, you're down to just 3 suspects: Brian Albert, Higgy Bear, and Chloe. Since Chloe's a good dog, she didn't do it. So that leaves just 2 suspects, Brian Albert and Higgy Bear. But of the 2 Brians, only one had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill John O'Keefe. And that's our old cuddly but violent Higgy Bear. Once we had all the facts and didn't jump to conclusions, do you see how easy it was to solve this crime?
Anyways, guys, much love and respect. This is great. I just wanted to point out that time frame again. Yeah, now we talking about that time frame. Karen Reed, Truth and Transparency is with you, girl. Fuck these people up. Just body shots, chop them down like the Russian. Rocky for these motherfuckers. We love you. Over and out. Join me back, guys, at my next live. It's coming right up next. We appreciate you guys. We will be covering, just like we covered the first 2 trials, we will be covering everything to do with the Karen Reed civil case that I know is going to lead to, like I said, whether it's how long it takes, these people are going down for their criminal involvement in the murder and the death of John O'Keefe, period. So I smell some whistleblowers coming on. Look at Lucky.
say they plan to sue
All right, see you on the next one. Peace out, Girl Scouts.